Alright, so I want to discuss libertarian free will. I want to discuss that view now. I'm doing this so basically so we can clear up some definitions, understand what we're all talking about. I'm going to kind of take it as this is the position that Mr. Tassi is espousing, and so of course I'll offer some critiques on his position. But let's recall that determinism was the position that all things are caused and happen necessarily through causation. We come now to the opposite end of that spectrum with a view that is called libertarianism, or more commonly, some people just refer to it very loosely as free will. Philosophically speaking, this view is the most misunderstood view. Theologically, it is the view that is currently dominating the evangelical church. So, what is libertarian free will? R.K. McGregor Wright defined the view this way. He says it's the belief that the human will has an inherent power to choose with equal ease between alternatives. This is commonly called the power of contrary choice, or the liberty of indifference. This belief does not claim that there are no influences that might affect the will, but it does insist that normally the will can overcome these factors and choose in spite of them. Ultimately, the will is free from any necessary causation. In other words, it is autonomous from outside determinism. Now, what this view is saying is essentially this, okay? That while deterministic factors certainly exist and they often act upon the will is totally free from such things so that it can choose between all options with equal ease. Okay? For instance, supposing that before me there is a nice and delicious ribeye steak, okay, which happens to be one of my favorites, and supposing that also I have a plate of liver over here, which I personally do not like at all. Okay, so according to the libertarian model of freedom, this is what happens. Okay, so although I certainly love steak, that would be considered an outside influence. Okay, in order to be truly free, I should be able to choose either one of my options, steak or liver, with basically no difference in between, nothing else to determine. It shouldn't matter anything within me. Okay, if I choose a steak, a libertarian would argue that I was bound to and that I was not free from my affection for steak. Hence, my choice was not truly free if it was determined even by my own desires. Okay? Libertarians, again, they don't argue against the existence of influences. However, the true act of freedom is displayed when I choose contrary to the outside influences and other such things that would seek to determine my choice. So the key understanding is that the will is or should be autonomous. Now, according to this model then, responsibility is grounded in the ability to choose between contrary choices. Thus, if I am not able to choose between contrary choices with equal ability, then I am not morally responsible for the choice. Theologically, this is where this really comes into play, is when the gospel call and in the effects of sin, which in turn they have implications for the meaning of the word grace. Okay, so for instance, when a sinner hears the gospel message, the question we ask here is, does the sinner possess the freedom to choose the gospel, or is he bound to his sinfulness? Now, historically, a man by the name of Pelagius, a British monk, argued against St. Augustine that we are sinners only in the sense of influence or example. We sin by example rather than of necessity to a fallen nature. This debate was known as the Pelagian controversy, and it was condemned. Pelagianism was condemned by such church councils as the Council of Carthage in 416 and 418 AD, as well as the Council of Ephesus 431. Also, a semi-Pelagian view was condemned at the Council of Orange in 529 AD. The system of thought still lives through Arminianism and evangelical Arminianism as popularized by John Wesley. So here we go. Now, let's get the monkey wrench out. Okay. If in order to be free my choices must not be caused by any outside influence, then what is the basis for a person making any choice at all? It would appear that there is no reason or no cause for making a choice. The choice just happens or is random, and it would appear that we have a violation of the maxim, out of nothing, nothing comes. So, it appears like we are irrational, basically. So here comes the monkey wrench. If a choice just happens, contrary to my own desires or my circumstances, how can I be held responsible for the choice at all, whether good, leading to moral praise, or bad, leading to moral punishment? Okay, there's a really huge issue there. For instance, supposing that I saw someone in trouble and needed my assistance. Now, if I helped them, what would be the basis of giving me moral praise if the choice just happened autonomously? That is, it was free from my person or from my character or moral virtues. Technically, it's not the moral character that I possessed that made the choice. Thus, my person should not deserve the moral praise for that. This is one of the many problems that's involved with the idea of libertarian or autonomous free will. Among other problems include the fact that the view of human freedom is never, this view of human freedom is never explicitly taught in Scripture. Other problems include the fact that we do in fact hold people morally responsible for their choices. In fact, our entire legal and court system is based on the belief that people are accountable for their actions. We also find this view in direct contradiction to previous teachings on the decrees and the sovereignty of God, which are explicitly taught in Scripture. Again, the idea that God, just Ephesians 1:11, that God is running all things according to the counsel of His will. John frames the Doctrine of God, lists 18 reasons why we should reject the libertarian view of freedom that one would do well to look into, and I'm not going to get into those all here. While we certainly must reject the libertarian view of freedom, we must maintain, though certainly not with the same grounds, that men are responsible for their own actions, especially for their sin. Okay, that is a responsibility, is a good thing. However, it is obvious that one cannot consistently maintain a belief in God and human autonomy as well. For if God is God, He must be God of all creation, thus ruling all that goes on within it. We're humans to be autonomous from God. Then the only thing we could say is that functionally we are equal with God, for we rule within our own sphere, and God would rule within His. We can put the dilemma this way: supposing that God wanted a particular person to be saved, and God went to many extremes to provide righteousness for the person and atonement for sins, etc. Now all the person needs to do is to have faith in Jesus Christ in order to be saved, and have all the work of Christ applied to his or her life. God's will is obvious in that He wants the person to be saved. But the person is free from outside influence, so in this sense he's free from God. His choice must not be determined or influenced in any way so that he can be responsible for his will. It is all up to him or her. So now God is the one hanging in the balance of waiting to see what choice will be made. Does this really sound like the God of the Bible? Does this sound like the God of Daniel 4:35, who does according to His will in the heavens and the earth and below? God left to the will of the creatures in order to see His own desires fulfilled? I think not.